That sounds really awesome.
Hey, feeling good, like I should. When in dark, I walk around the neighborhood. Feeling blessed, never stressed. Got that sunshine.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Jemmuel here. I just want to say thank you so much for tuning into this video. I really appreciate it. I hope you're all staying safe and healthy during this crazy time that's going on in the world. But anyways, today's video and today's topic, I wanted to talk about approaching getting a great sound out of an amp that I'm not really familiar with. So a few weeks ago, my good friend John Acton, who's an amazing singer-songwriter, was kind enough to drop off this Tutor Studio Pro 22 amplifier to me while he heads off overseas for a few months. And I'm actually not familiar with Tutor amps besides the fact that people like John Mayer and Matt Schofield and people like Joey Landreth and Ariel Posen use it. And whenever I think Tutor, I'm always thinking of, I don't know, like a Dumble-esque kind of tone. Anyways, I'm a guy that uses mainly Vox style amplifiers and sometimes even Fender style amplifiers too, so I'm really familiar with that kind of sound and tube format. But with this, I thought I'd do a video on how I would approach using an amp I'm not familiar with and trying to get the best sound that I can out of an amp that I'm not used to. Just as a side note, this is not a review of the amp, and another thing is that the reverb circuit has actually been disconnected by my friend, so later you'll hear some reverb when I plug a pedal board in, but for now it'll just be pretty dry. Now the guitars I'm going to be using for this demonstration are two different kinds of guitars. One's like a regular single coil Tele kind of guitar, and the other one's like a Les Paul dual humber type of guitar, just to get a few differentiations of different types of tones. These guitars are made by the amazing Timo Tolvanen at Tolvanen Guitars here in Australia, so thank you very much Timo for making some of my favorite guitars on the planet. So whenever I approach any kind of amp, whether it's an amp I'm used to or something I'm not used to, I'm always looking for three tonal qualities that I'm trying to achieve. And those tonal qualities are clarity, character, and balance. And what do I mean by that? Well, when I'm talking about clarity, I want to be able to make sure that the amp and the guitar react together in a way where it's nice and clear and you can hear every note and every note separation, and it's able to help me sound like me. And what am I looking for when it comes to the character of an amp? Well, every amp with, especially tube amps and different kinds of circuits, all have their own kind of different personality, whether it's their clean sound, their overdriven sound, they all have a character. So I'm trying to get the best character that is out of an amp, whether it's something that's, say, Voxy. The character of a Vox is chimey, and with a Fender it's nice and clean, and if it's a Marshall it's got that, nice, basement clean thing, but when you drive it, it's Marshall. You get that classic Marshall drive sound. And with balance, what do I mean by balance? Well, I want to make sure that all the frequencies and all the EQs and the knobs are all balanced together. So one, the amp doesn't have too much low end, so it's not too boomy and woofy, so whenever I throw an effect like an overdrive pedal, it doesn't turn out to be really muddy and not clear. And with the mids, I don't want it to be too honky, and neither do I want it to be too scooped. I just want it to have a nice mid character so that it's able to cut through the mix nicely and still retain the fullness of its sound. And with the treble or the high end, I want to make sure that it's not too piercing for the ears, that the guitar is able to speak and still be clear while not chopping everyone's heads off. So here's a clean sound with the neck pickup. All the knobs are pretty much flat, including this knob here at the back, the return level. Make sure that's set even. So just gonna see what I need to tweak and what I want to hear. So right now it's really dark and very low mid heavy. So the first thing I will do is I will actually tweak two things. One, I will tweak the volume, and then I'll tweak the high end and treble and try to make the clarity stick out first. Now the reason why I want to adjust the volume first is because usually with tube amps, the louder you turn it up, the better it sounds. The more of the amp's characteristics come through, you know, it's able to push out the frequencies more out of the speaker, and then the tubes are able to, you know, generate sound more and work harder and push harder. Yeah, that's kind of the reason why I would want to tweak the volume first. So let's do that. Let's muck around with the gain and the master volume. See. Now it's time to tweak the treble. Now this amp also has a push-pull bright switch, both at the front panel and also at the back with the return level knob. So what I did was, I was pretty much just tweaking around the treble until I could hear some clarity come through, and then with the pull knob, bring in more clarity. So that's something I like. So I'll leave that just right there. Also, I'm making sure to switch pickups just to make sure that it's even across the whole frequency spectrum of each pickup. So the bridge isn't too bitey and too harsh in the high end for my ears, and then the neck isn't too woolly. And yeah. So now when it comes to the mid and the bass control, a lot of the times with amps like Fender amps, I would actually like to dial the bass down more so the low end stays tighter. Whereas an amp like a Vox or even a Tutor, I'll actually just leave the bass where it is flat, because they don't have too much low end, and especially with this amp, the low end is big but it's also tight, and it doesn't get too flubby or too muddy. It's really punchy and really percussive. You can do a lot of, you know, muted stuff and it'll retain its tightness, which I like. So I'll just leave that there. And with the mid control, what I hear with this amp is it is really mid-heavy, but it's not mid-heavy to the point where it's muddy. Pretty much like John Mayer. Or Stevie Ray Vaughan. It's got a nice thick mids, but it's really punchy, and that's kind of the character. So I'll muck around with the mids and see if I need to scoop some or add some more mids. I'm pretty happy with that. A little less mids, but it's not too much where it's scooped to the point where all the mids are gone. Still nice and punchy, and I'm sure that will cut through a mix really nicely. And other knobs like the contour knob and the return level knob, I'll muck around with that and see what they do, and if they add or subtract to a better tonal result, then I'll leave it where it is. See that the return level is kind of acting like another master volume / treble control. It's adding more high end, but also pushing the tubes a little harder. Another reason why I also like to tweak the master and the gain controls is I like to see the point where the amp breaks up. Usually I'm a guy who likes to play with a little bit of edge of breakup kind of tone, but with an amp like this, I think I don't want it. I just like it to be really clean and really high headroom. So I'll dial the return level back to probably where it was, so it still retains that nice clean thing but still sounding really big. I like that tone. I'll leave that where it is. It's got a nice clarity to it. The mids are there, but it's not too overclouding the clarity of the amp, and the bass is nice and tight. And it's got character. It's great. It's got the things I'm looking for. Clarity, character, and balance. Yeah, so that's how I would tweak this amp with the Telecaster. Now let's try something with humbuckers, and then we'll try out some effects and see how I like those effects to sound with this kind of amp. Alright, now humbuckers. Now generally with humbuckers they're going to be a little darker, they're going to be a little more mid-heavy, so we're going to tweak it and see how we can get character, clarity and balance out of a guitar like this with this Tutor Studio Pro 22. That's sounding pretty good right now. Maybe a little too much treble. I'll dial that a little back. Yeah, that's sounding pretty good to me. Kind of balanced throughout all of the pickups, and the high end isn't too harsh. The mids are there, but it's not too overpowering. The bass is nice and tight, and yeah, the volume and the gain is set in a place where it's big, but it's not breaking up too hard. It's great. Now if I threw a few pedals in it, let's see how it sounds. So now we're plugged into the Line 6 Helix. I'm just going to use it just for effects, such a few drives. I've got a low, medium, and a high gain kind of drive, and see how it reacts that kind of way. So here's clean. And here's the first stage drive. A little too bright for my ears, so we'll dial out the treble just a little bit. With the pedal. Sounds really good to me. So one of the things I like to do before even plugging a pedal in is I like to get the core sound of the amp sounding as best as possible first, so that when you plug pedals in, they'll react in a way where they're all really balanced, so that the amp is doing the heavy lifting and the pedals are just enhancing what the amp is putting out. That sounds really awesome. And now, same thing with the telly. Once again, making sure that the amp is sounding the way I want it to first before even plugging a pedal in. So, adjusting the high end with the telly. Now with some drive. Sounds like John Mayer. So yeah guys, that's kind of my approach when I start tweaking an amp I'm not familiar with and I'm trying to get the best sound that I can out of it, so it sounds like me and it reacts the way that I want to be able to play, and it helps me be comfortable with my playing and get a tone that I am really enjoying. So that's it for today's video. I really appreciate you for watching and I hope that you learned something new. This amp sounds awesome, and I hope that whenever you are approached with an amp you're not familiar with, I hope that you'll be able to, use the tips that I've shared, and hopefully it all turns out great. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and follow me on these social media platforms, and I would love to be able to make music with you and even play guitar on some of your songs or whatever, any projects you have. So yeah, feel free to hit me up. I really appreciate it. So yeah, you have an awesome day. Peace out.
Hey, feeling good, like I should. When in dark, walk around.